Boys and girls, welcome to episode 2 of The Debate. Tonight on the agenda, is Stan Kroenke to blame for everything? Let's debate it. Let's go. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Hello everyone, you are listening to this on pre-record. It is our second episode of The Debate, a brand new series here from the Highbury Squad. Welcome back to the show, my podcast brother from another mother, Mr. Super Kevin Campbell.
Good to be back, Soph. Just nice and quick squaddies at ease. Let's do this. Looking forward to this, and it's been a long time coming, this one, Sophie.
I think so. In our very first episode, we talked about Arsene Wenger, and it definitely ruffled a few feathers. Mm-hmm. Very polarizing subjects, Kev, when it comes to ownership, who's to blame at Arsenal. And on our show today, we're going to talk a little bit about Stan Kroenke. And I want to take it a little bit further back because for some of our younger listeners, I'm sure there are a lot of them out there that know the Arsenal story, but at the same time, they might not know a few bits and pieces. So I think it's important that we understand who and what we're dealing with. Stan Kroenke, as you know, is an American business owner who owns our club. He was born in 1947. He owns Kroenke Sport Entertainment, aka KSE. His business grew considerably in the 80s. By the end of the 20th century, he branched out into sports. He owns the Colorado Nuggets. He owns the Avalanche. He owns the LA Rams. He owns the Denver Nuggets. Sorry, not the Colorado. It was the Denver Nuggets, Colorado Avalanche, Colorado Rapids, Colorado Mammoth, Los Angeles Rams, and the Arsenal Football Club as well. He's been involved with our club since 2007 after buying a 9.9% stake, which increased to 63% in 2011 before assuming full control in 2018. He is also one of the most richest landowners in the United States. He and his wife have a combined wealth of $16.6 billion. He is definitely a very rich man. But the big question, Kev, is that after the January transfer window, there are a lot of disgruntled Arsenal fans. There are a lot of Arsenal fans who are upset with what we've done. We were also a team last summer that spent more money in the transfer window than any other football club in the world. I think the thing that Arsenal fans don't like, Kev, is that money spent is with the company's own cash flow. I.e., Stan Kroenke is not the type of owner who puts his own hands in his pocket like City, like Chelsea, like Aston Villa, like Everton, etc., etc. So, with that caveat, I think Arsenal fans kind of expect more, but with the same token, I wonder if Arsenal fans have really dug deep to see whether the money comes from him or cash flow. We've spent a lot of money, right?
Well, whether it's from his pocket or not, Sophie, we've spent a lot of money.
Yes. And I think they want him to do a little bit more of the Thomas Partey action. Put your money in your pocket, pay the release clause. You know, why didn't you do that for Alexander Isak and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. In 2007, Stan Kroenke took his shares to 11.24%. And I want to go a little bit further back for some of our younger listeners. Peter Hillwood, who was the chairman of Arsenal Football Club, he was part of the football club for 51 years. He served as chairman for 31 years. Said in 2007, I believe, call me old-fashioned, but we don't need Kroenke's money and we don't want his sort. Our objective is to keep Arsenal English, albeit with a lot of foreign players. I don't know for certain if Kroenke will mount to a hostile takeover of our club, but we shall resist with all our might. We're all being seduced with Americans and how they'll ride into town with pots of cash for new players. This just simply isn't the case. They only see an opportunity to make money. They absolutely know nothing about our football, and we don't want these types involved. Peter Hill-Wood sold his shares to a young David Dein in the 80s and 90s. And he sold the last of his family shares worth about £5.5 million to Stan Kroenke. This is where I want to start, Kev, because in 2012, fast forward, Peter Hill-Wood is defending Stan Kroenke in the Usmanov-Kroenke battle, saying that it was nice to make money from selling shares. You wouldn't say no to a few £1,000,000, but he rejected the complete and utter rubbish, as said in the Guardian newspaper, the accusation that the club was run deliberately to increase the value of his and other owners' shares at the expense of supporters and a robust budget for Arsene Wenger. He said that it was nice to make that money, but he was never involved in Arsenal for that reason. I was involved because I've been brought up to love Arsenal, and that is my only concern. For those who don't know, Peter Hill-Wood's father and family have been involved in Arsenal Football Club for a very long time. Now, this was at the time when Robin van Persie also made it vocal that Arsenal weren't investing in the team, and that's why he wanted to leave. Just to wrap this up real quick, Richard Carr, who was a long-standing shareholder, sold his shares for £45 million. By April 2011, Kroenke had acquired stakes from both Danny Fiszman and Lady Nina Bracewell-Smith, around 16% for both. Bracewell-Smith made 116 million with her shares. Fiszman made 166 million. Fiszman had also bought a little bit of Arsenal shares through the David Dein stake in the 90s. 7 years would pass before Kroenke eventually paid more than 600 million after buying Fiszman and Bracewell-Smith's shares for the 30% stake held by Usmanov, who held on as long as he could, but couldn't resist the amount of money. Then, hence, in 2018, Stan Kroenke became the private owner of Arsenal Football Club.
Can I just say, I need to ask a question, and maybe people could help me in the chat when we get to the end. Sophie, I don't think, or I'm not, regarding Usmanov, it was a choice, either Usmanov or Kroenke. The club didn't want Usmanov. Usmanov wanted to be on the board. He wanted to pump money in. They refused it. They wouldn't even let him on the board, Sophie.
Yeah. There was a resistance, Kev. It was initially, I would say for most of the time, most of the people on the board were Camp Kroenke versus Camp Usmanov. Yes. And you could argue a little bit because Moshihiri was also, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but they're partners and of course Usmanov's USM holdings. Now owner of Everton Football Club, you could argue which club is in better shape, Arsenal or Everton, Kev. So I want to circle it back to, and I know Peter Hill-Wood is someone that you've respected. He was good to you. He was good to a lot of Arsenal players. He really ran Arsenal as an independent institution versus a business for so many years. But even he caved. So with all that I've said, what's your take in terms of Kroenke coming in? The time period is very important for Arsenal fans in terms of when he had total control versus from his start.
He came in just a stake. Mm-hmm. I think getting new money in, a new shareholder, Hill-Wood would accept that. Obviously, because David Dein is there, Arsenal were running themselves perfectly. We had a team that was. We had the Invincibles. We had a team that was top. We were looking forward, Sophie. We looked like nothing could ever go wrong. Getting somebody else in, an American in as a shareholder, not majority shareholder, etc., not a problem. But I believe you do gauge a temperature. Hill-Wood would be the type of person, he's been around this block long enough to know if Stan Kroenke's working away in the background, Sophie, getting people on side, he's going to know about it. And I believe, obviously, with that, there's that and his health as well. His health started to deteriorate a little bit. he saw the writing on the wall, Sophie. He really did. And it was, am I going to go against all of these people who, if they cobble their shares together, probably could oust me? Or do I play ball? So probably in the end, he was left with no choice, Sophie, but to play ball. That man is, you cut him and he's got Arsenal's like a stick of rock. He's got Arsenal inside him. But even he had to succumb to the pressure from the board, from the people in and around him, shareholders, which was really sad.
Do you think that those shareholders, Kev, get away with it? Because it's so easy to blame the American owner. Do you think they get away with it? And this show is called The Debate because what happens next is, this, of course, is not live. You guys in your YouTube comments and then in the following live show that we do that comes after this is you're going to debate with us and let us know what you think and debate with each other. You're either pro-Kroenke. The reason I brought up all this old stuff too, Kev, is like, did they get away with selling out?
Of course. Of course they did, Sophie. They have got away with it. Listen, the reason why you went back to that point and why I said, look, we had the Invincibles, etc., was because we were one of the best. Look where we are now. We're striving to try and get back there, but we were one of the best. So you have to look at, if we were one of the best there, and now we're not, why aren't we? And when you see the decline, Sophie, you and I debate it so many times on the Highbury Squad. Sometimes it doesn't fit. We love our club, but sometimes it doesn't feel like our club that we've grown up with.
Kev, I'm going to give you two different numbers here, okay? This is Premier League capital expenditure from 2010 to 2020. For some of the kids that don't know, Kev, explain to them real quick what capital expenditure is.
Well, look, capital, money that the club earn, and you obviously spend it out. So capital expenditure, it's what you spend.
Okay.
Right? Simple as that. What you earn and what you spend.
So 2010 to 2020, number one, Tottenham Hotspur, 1.4 billion. Number two, Manchester City, 378 million. Of course, Tottenham's is their stadium, right? Mm-hmm. Number three, Liverpool Football Club, 238. Number four, Brighton, 181 million. And number five, Arsenal Football Club, 132 million. Now, the caveat to that, owner financing, Kev, from 2010 to 2020. Number one is Manchester City at 1.1 billion and 550, then Chelsea 570 million, Villa 459, Everton 348, and it goes down. There's 20 teams in the Premier League, right? Mm-hmm. In 15th position, 15 million is Arsenal Football Club.
That's not a surprise, Sophie. If we're honest, although we have spent money, but when you looking to be the best, you have to be up with the best teams. Mm-hmm. And we have been lacking so badly in that respect.
So I think that's something we fans need to understand. And what I said earlier, you want Kroenke putting his hand in his own pocket. You want him spending City money, PSG money. You want him doing that because of the reasons I said earlier. The dude, together with his wife, is worth 16.6 billion. On his own, he's worth almost 9 billion. He spent 1.3 or 4 billion dollars of his own money towards the LA Rams stadium in Los Angeles. And of course, he's not going to blur the lines. His business in the NFL and his American sports teams is one thing. Arsenal Football Club is a completely different thing. And I think what Arsenal fans want, Kev, is to see him do the same for the Gunners. And that just hasn't been happening in terms of him putting his hand in his pocket.
Yeah. One thing I have to say, Sophie, they are very different business models. The NFL business model is very different to the Arsenal business model on how they run, how things work. Because, you are given, each team is given a certain amount of money and you've got to fit the players into that wage structure, haven't you, in America? So you can, if you've got the space, then you could sign the best players in the NFL. But if you don't have the space, then you're stuck.
And he threw the kitchen sink at the Rams in the last year or so to win it all.
Yes, because there's certain things you can do. You could trade your draft picks, etc., in order to acquire the top players. Financial fair play won't allow you to do that. I'm sure if he did dip into his pocket, he had a chance, hopefully, early on to really pump serious money into this club. He never took it. So that chance went. And now he's kind of stuck. He can't go crazy or else we'll be way over FFP.
So, again, there's so much venom thrown at Kroenke. And he and the club, they were all responsible for moving the team from the Highbury to the Emirates. People like David Dein, Peter Hillwood. You've got Fiszman here. You've got Dein. You've got Hillwood with Wenger. Yeah. You've got Fiszman and with George Graham here. You've got Lady Ken Fryer. Yeah. You've got Lady Bracewell-Smith, who took a chunk of her change to Monaco. Nice. In fact, Peter Hillwood had a very public spat with Bracewell-Smith. And then you had this guy who wanted to come in and save the club from itself and went very public, which angered Peter Hillwood tremendously. And like Kevin said at the beginning, he firmly put his Sir Chips in the Kroenke basket. Yeah. So why isn't there as much venom towards these people who sold their shares, Kev? I understand you saying they had it in their blood, they loved the club, there was no choice. But I
only say that about the ones I know. Bracewell-Smith, I don't know her. Fiszman, I've met Fiszman a few times. Seemed to be nice, but there seemed to be a changing of the guard. And when it comes to profit, Sophie, money changed the mind. And Kroenke worked on the inside. Once he's a shareholder, he got working on the inside.
He hasn't been paid a dividend the same way the Glazer family have at United, has he, Kev? I mean, initially he was getting that £25,000, and so was Josh when Josh came onto the board as well. But then I think he took, it was 2.6. I'm going to read it here because he previously banked 2.6 million from the club, including a fat 1.67 million salary. But correct me if Arsenal Group paid a fee of 3 million to KSE for rendering his services. And I think that was in 2013, 2014. But the Glazers take dividends all the time, don't they? Versus what Kroenke does. So he gets all the blame. And trust me, guys, this is a debate for a reason.
You've got to hear both sides. Definitely.
Exactly. Now, I lean towards not everything is his fault.
Because it's not. Not everything is his fault.
But his biggest fault, Kev, since taking over the club, is hiring terrible executives and businessmen to do the job. And we ended up with terrible contracts, players leaving for absolutely nothing. People talking about saving 25 million on Aubameyang's salary now. We paid 60 plus million for Aubameyang. They're the ones, Arteta and Edu are the ones that gave him the contract for 350 grand plus a week. Instead of cutting ties with players, letting them... Look at Ramsey. Went to Juventus for nothing, earning 400 grand there. How many players have been sold for absolutely nothing? How much of this is he responsible for, Kevin?
Well, this is what I would say, Sophie. The American model and the English model is different. And you know what? I had to think about this. We've had long enough to plan this and think about this. I had a thought about this, Sophie. And you know what I've actually seen and realized? In the NFL, the top players go on freeze, don't they? They run the contract down and go on freeze. That's why it's been allowed to happen at Arsenal. I don't think that for a normal chairman in the Premier League or in English football, you look at numbers working. You look at how long's he got. Well, if he's not going to sign, we'll let him go, etc. We look at things like that in order to balance. I think the Americans have a different mindset, Sophie. I think they don't mind top players running down their contracts and going because they're so used to it in America. And I'm not saying that should be lauded, no. But I just think it's more palatable for him. Has it happened on his watch? 100%. Should it be allowed to happen? 100% it shouldn't be. And maybe his problem is he's trusted people 100%, Sophie, to get the job done. And they have not done the job correctly.
Kev, how involved do you think, and when we talk about the Kroenkes now, we have to, of course, we're talking about Josh as well. I should have had a picture up of Josh. How involved is Stan, do you think? Because I think Josh has to be, but how involved do you think Stan is and Josh on saying, let Ozil go for nothing, let Kolasinac go for nothing? Well, Kolasinac, to be fair, came on a free.
No, but even so,
yeah.
You're right, Sophie, for bringing that up. And I think that goes right to the top, Sophie. That goes right to the top. Because whether you like it or not, that's money coming out of the football club. So it's got to be signed off or stamped by the owner or ownership. That's got to be stamped.
So, Kev, do you think in his mind, the Kroenkes' mind, and, you know, the club's mind and stuff, do you think that they're thinking we're saving 25 million paying Aubameyang versus 18 months ago after the FA Cup when really maybe he wanted to leave, we could have sold him for 30 million to someone?
Well, here's the thing, you see, Sophie. I understand what you're saying, but after what he'd done against Chelsea in the final and what he'd done against Man City in the semi-final, could you imagine the uproar if we sold him? So you have to sign him, Sophie. It was just like Sanchez and Ozil. If you let both of them go, you are in big trouble. So they've kind of got you in a catch-22 situation. You don't know whether to twist or stick, but you have to sign them. So they're in such a great negotiation position. That's where every player wants to be. Every player wants to be in a position where the club need me. They need me. If you're going to sell me, then to replace me is going to cost you a hell of a lot more.
Yeah. And you're right. At that time, we were all begging for the sign to da ting. There was a whole campaign for it. Even Ian Wright got involved in that. Sign da ting.
And listen, you know me on strikers. I'm part of the strikers union. So Aubameyang, for me, at that time, listen, he took us over the line. He got us that FA Cup as captain. There was no problems. As captain, he done the business, and we got the FA Cup, and we were really looking forward.
Okay, so a couple of other numbers I want to throw at you, because these aren't cheap wage bills, are they, Kev? No. From 2014 right through to now the end of 2022. This is where some Arsenal fans feel like we won the January transfer window. We definitely won last year's, but we lost in the sense that everyone went for nothing, but we got rid of the cancer in the dressing room. Mm-hmm. Kev, these numbers show that, again, they're not afraid to spend money, but again, the money has been spent on the wrong players.
Sophie, you look at those numbers, they're huge. They are absolutely huge. And Arsenal are not afraid to go and pay people good wages, some great wages, to come to Arsenal Football Club and to try and do the business for the Arsenal. Our problem is the recruitment, the type of player. We got sold down the river. We don't even need to go down there. We got sold by the river, saying that we go to the Emirates, we're in it to compete. Maybe we're in it to pay wages, but where's the competition? Where? We need players first and foremost who are going to fight for that shirt. And maybe now the owner feels a lot more comfortable with us being a bit more frugal, being a bit more cautious, and going for youth. Maybe that's where he finally feels a bit more comfortable and say, right, okay, I could see where we're going now.
And much like he's trusted a young manager at the LA Rams in Sean McVay, he's trusting a young manager in Mikel Arteta. I wanted to put these final numbers up for you, Kev, to get your opinion. This is Tim Payton, of course, from the Arsenal Supporters Trust, who were definitely part of the group that, lost some privilege and fell foul to Kroenke going private. The AST in terms of transparency, that doesn't really exist like it used to. Our good friend of the show, Daniel Bailey, is on the special board, and it looks like that board meeting might not be happening in person. I wonder why. This is what people want from the owner. They want a bit more transparency, but business doesn't also work that way. Tim says the transfer window is worth reflecting on Arsenal's financial position. The club will report losses of circa 150 million next month. Kroenke placed an extra 100 million of debt on the club last year. The total debt now is 500 million. That debt is to KSE. Is that correct, Kev? The debt that...
Well, look, I believe the debt is to KSE. And look, this is the way the billionaires play. This is the way they play their game.
OPM.
Yes, other people's money. The way you have to position yourself as an owner like that in order to do what he wants to do, that has to be involved. Because as you know, and I know, he's not going to go in his own pocket and pump the money in. So there has to be a certain amount of debt. Debt can always be refinanced, Sophie. It can always be rejigged and split and all sorts of things can happen with debt. But as far as he's concerned, they like to work with debt because debt to them is their friend. It's not our friend, it's their friend.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so the big question is Kroenke to blame for everything? I think Kev and I we're definitely looking forward to your responses. Make sure you're vocal in that YouTube comment section. We will then come back on the live show on Monday and we will look at all of your responses, and everyone in live chat, we will debate you with us, and then I'm sure it will create debate between myself and Kev. Right now, we're presenting the facts of the debate, our initial opinions on the debate. How far back do you have to go to see who is responsible for Arsenal's fall and rise and fall, whichever way you want to look at it? Who is to blame? And is this guy to blame for everything? Kev, your closing comments.
My closing comments are, look, I know that this has been an absolute travesty, considering it's 17 years, Sophie. We haven't even, since we last won a title. That's what frustrates Arsenal fans. But let's look at this on the debate and look at the facts. Let's just look at the facts and the numbers. Anybody who's got facts and numbers who can put it in the chat, fantastic. Let's stick it in. Let's all put it together and let's all have a good live show and check it out, because you know what? It's about time we done this and moved on from it. So check out the debate.
Exactly. And the truth is, he didn't start buying up shares in 2006 to sell the club to just anyone. There's a reason he bought it. There's a reason he moved the Rams from St. Louis to LA. There's a reason he's one of the largest landowners in America. There's a reason why he owns so many sports teams. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. You can decide. And like Kev says, any stats and facts and supporting material that you want to share with us, be sure to post it in the YouTube channel. And we will see and read all your comments on Monday's live show. Until then, we're out. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.